Okay, so I've made up my bits. So I have a number 632 screw and lock washer. Here's the chunk of cable chain. And I also made this little plate and just filed the top edges over around so they won't snag the cable. And in theory, this should all line up just like that and bolt on here. Now unfortunately the little chunk of cable chain I grabbed already had a hole drilled in the back of it here. So where this sits on this plate is a little off just because that hole was off. And at this point I don't think it's worth redoing. But if it looks like it's going to be an issue, I just got to grab another section of chain and drill a new hole in it. That should be good. Okay, that should be good there. Now the reason I used this plate was to spread the clamping force of the screw across that whole bar, which also clamps the two edges of it better than if I just put one screw in the center and then it'll be floppy on these two edges, or tried to put two screws in there, in which case, well, that would have worked fine, but it had just been a pain to do. So now I'm just putting this back together real quick to see how all this worked out. One thing I can notice already is I almost could use one more link in the chain. It's just a little, when it's all the way over this way, this plate wants to tip in a little bit. That's easy to fix. I just add a link to the chain and I'm done, but for right now I just sort of play with it. So as you can see, I can't quite get all the way over here, so I think I am going to add a link to the chain. Oh, you guys can't see much of anything from there. Up here. So, if I go all the way this way, I can't quite get to the stop I want to, because this chain maxes out. So I'm just going to add a link to the center. Like that. Okay, now I get all the way over and there's still some slack in here, which is good. And going all the way over this way, that is over the end stop, and as you can see, yeah, this is a little sprung, but it's not too bad. Realistically, I want to end right there. So what's next? I need to get that end stop in there. Where did he go? He's on the cable. So somehow I need to mount this somewheres in there. That would almost work had I made this plate bigger, but I didn't. Somewhere in this general vicinity where I can get an adjustable flag so I can set the home depth on this. So I may mount it right there and just make a little slotted flag right here. I can move back and forth and then tighten the screws. Go that way. Oh, that's another option I hadn't thought of. There's no reason I have to put it up in this area. I could put it down here. So an option would be to put it right, somewhere right in here, and then drill a hole through this plate such that the flag can go through the sensor and out through the plate, or at least into the plate. So then I could get fully inserted and then back off when needed. I might do that. That's going to require a very small flag, but I think I can rig something up. I do have to avoid that surface. So I think I'm going to take this apart and get the holes for the sensor laid out and drilled and tapped, including the clearance hole for the flag to go through, and then I'll come back and figure out my flag. Okay, so I've taken this guy, drilled the 2 mounting holes and the clearance hole for the flag to stick through when it comes all the way over. So now I'm just going to mount this guy to the back. I have some 5/8 inch long number 440 screws, which in theory should be flush on the other side, or a little proud when tightened all the way down. I have a lock washer and then a flat washer, just to keep the lock washer from biting into the plastic. Probably don't need a lock washer. In fact, I didn't even use washers or lock washers on the other sensor, but they take up a little bit of the distance to keep the screw heads from, or the tails of the screw from poking through too far. So now I just sort of got this squared up to the back of the aluminum, like so. That's good. A little bit of a twist. So yeah, these are just proud, and hopefully I can make a little rod that's adjustable that can go right through that hole. So now I need to put this back on there and hook everything back up. So just like all the other times, 2 screws, and we're good to go. See that? So that clears. The cable will go on like so, and then I'll just wrap it carefully back like that and bundle it into the cable bundle that is going to go up and around and then down and through. Can you see any of that? Okay, try that again. So this will bundle back like this into the main cable bundle, which is going to go up, around, down, and then down through this lower drag chain. Now I have both drag chains working, and the only thing left is I need to make an adjustable flag that hits this sensor and bolts to this plate. I want it to have little windows on it so I can adjust it, so that I can precisely set and then lock down this distance. I did something similar on the front guide over here. Let me move you to where you can see. So if you look right here, this guide has screws into this slide, and I can loosen the screws and adjust up and down in these slots to exactly set where the center trips the sensor. So I want to do something similar to this on the other side, but only have it poke through that hole. So I'm going to go bend that up and mill a couple slots in it and see what I can make. Okay, so here's what I came up with for the flag. It'll mount in just like that. This is shaved down to go through the sensor and through the hole in that mounting piece. And that's about it. And a couple of slots so I can move it back and forth to fine adjust it. I drew a straight line referenced off of this guy, so that when this is mounted on that line, this flag is in the middle of the sensor, and more importantly in the middle of the hole through this guy. So let me just slap this on real quick. I'm using number 440 by 1/4 inch, a flat washer and a lock washer. The flat washer in this case is just to keep the lock washer from lining up with the slot and acting as a crappy washer instead of a lock washer because the split's not being compressed. And I got 2 of these. things aren't too horribly wrong, I should go right in. Just loosen this up. This black mark here is where it should line up and trip the sensor just as this thing gets to its maximum position to the right that I want it to go. Well, right when looking at the side of the machine. Oops. So I'm just going to... Well, I don't have the right Phillips screwdriver for these guys, so I'm just going to snug them best I can. I gotta do this again just to see if I can get a better focus. Possibly not. So in the hole you see the red light, which is the sensor. And as I come over, right there, it trips the sensor. And if I keep going, the end of that flag just pokes in that hole without hitting anything. So I can overrun it accidentally without bumping into anything, and then eventually the wheels hit this end plate to stop the carriage if it totally goes out of control. But I should be able to hit it, overrun a little bit, and then back up and find the edge. So with that, I think this guy is done. Okay, so with that, I think everything's good. So we got drag chain all figured out. We got the end stop sensor. This guy, I'll probably just put a zip tie right there to hold it, and then this will go in the bundle, and that will be done. Yeah, I think this is all good. This is fixed. And actually, when I go to ship this thing or move it, this plate actually helps protect this sensor, because I'll probably move it in this position, because then this isn't sticking up in the way. Maybe I'll ship it this way. I'll just have to see. Only major, not a major oops, but if I was going to do it over again, I'd probably move this plate this way just a bit, because right now this chain, when it's collapsed, isn't parallel. It's slightly offset this way. I forgot to take into account the thickness of this plate when I positioned this guy. It happens. Had I slid it over, these screws would not have lined up. This one would have been sort of right on the edge of that plate, so maybe this is good. If it becomes an issue, I can take this screw out, move it over, drill a new hole, bolt it back on. But I think it'll be fine the way it is. It's not binding, so call that good. Okay, so what's next? I need to get some of the software working so that I can see the image from this camera. So this camera has a manual zoom type deal right there, and I want to get that sort of set up so I want to get the brackets to hold this guy, which he's going to go somewhere right in here. The question is, does he need to be down here? Does he need to be up here? I want to get that distance set so I get the best focus image on this plate I can before I make the brackets for it, so I know where he needs to go, because he has to fit inside of here. Yeah, that's going to be tricky. I sort of hosed myself a little bit with how I laid out this belt, because there's no leftover on the bottom for me to bolt in. So I'm probably going to have to do like some sort of little standoff in between the two belts right here. No, can't do that because this plate will hit. Yeah, I really kind of just hosed myself. So I'll have to figure something out. I could hold it all from up here, but then this thing's going to want to rattle down in there. So I got to do some thinking, figure that out. First, get the software going, at least far enough that I can fire up the camera and find its position this way, and adjustment this way for the best image. Ooh, didn't know that unscrewed. So I've tried to take this camera apart without much luck. I don't really want to force it because I don't know if they, put all the guts together and then glue this end in. It'd be nice to take this apart just so I can affix this collar in one position once I find it. But I think whatever I use to mount this, I'll probably have it go over this ring so I can put a set screw into the ring and just keep it from twisting. But more on that once I get stuff going and can see where that needs to go in this thing. After I get that figured out, I got a couple different options. I can get all my wiring put in, which I bought a bunch of shielded stranded cable to do that. This is 24 gauge, which looks to be the same as this stuff. So I should be able to just cut, heat shrink, splice, and then run that cabling through here, which is a little more robust than just these guys. Although some of these motors, like this one, I may just use as is because he's probably long enough to reach the controllers. But these two guys, they're too short, so I'm going to have to fix them. Especially this guy, he got lopped off at some point. I think the person I got this from, their cat ate the cables or something dumb. So, I think that's all I got. So, camera figured out, I could cable it, I could work on the upward looking camera, and then I need to machine the adapters to go onto these shafts and hold the little pick and place heads. I gotta assemble all the electronics for the bottom, so yeah, there's plenty left. But good progress. I'm all cable guided now. I'm really happy with how that turned out. And that's it. Until next time.